At the turn of the 20th century, a neighborhood in Gloucester's working waterfront known as the Fort was home to an enclave of Sicilian immigrants whose lives revolved around three things: God, family, and fishing. Gloucester was America's largest seaport, and work was plentiful. Immigrants arrived for a hard but better life on one of the hundreds of fishing vessels. They were instilled with an unyielding devotion to the patron saint of fishermen, and brought with them an annual religious tradition that blossomed into the most popular attraction in all of Cape Ann. I'm Corey Kukuru for 1623 Studios, and this is the story of St. Peter's Fiesta. In 1926, fishing captain Sal Favazza wanted to replicate in Gloucester a custom from his birthplace of Favorata Terracini of thanking St. Peter for fair seas and abundant catches. He commissioned a Charlestown sculptor to build a statue of St. Peter that, to Favazza's surprise, arrived at his home nearly life-size, standing 5 feet tall and weighing 600 pounds. Fishermen's wives hailed its arrival with a novena, 9 days of song and prayer for their husbands at sea, at the Favazza's backyard. But the fishermen's wives wanted the statue to be honored the way it was in the old country, by taking it outdoors, mounting it to a platform, and parading it around the fort so every family could rejoice. Women collected $1 from each fishing boat and built a proper altar to rest the statue. In June of 1927, in accordance with the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul, a Roman holiday of public worship, St. Peter's Fiesta began. The Fort families opened their homes with endless amounts of food and wine. Decorative quilts and bedspreads hung from windows. Opera blared through the streets. The fishing fleet stayed in to celebrate, every boat painted and bannered. They went to the water's edge and blessed the statue, signifying the start of Fiesta. Fireworks were launched off Pavilion Beach as fishermen, dressed in all white, carried St. Peter on their shoulders, marching and chanting, "Vamos, amo, tu te muta! Viva San Pedro! Vamos, amo, tu te muta! Viva San Pedro!" As Gloucester began to embrace this new occasion, organizers wanted St. Peter's Fiesta to last multiple days and rival Boston's famous Fisherman's Feast, an annual citywide festival in the North End. The first order of business was to build a spectacular altar that could fit the statue, musical entertainment, and a Sunday benediction. Emilio Matarazzo, a contractor who ran a warehouse with his 4 sons in Chinatown, became Fiesta's official decorator. The Matarazzos strung lights along Commercial Street and built jaw-dropping altars that mimicked famous churches along the Mediterranean, such as the Avellino Cathedral in Sicily and St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The first altars rose above the homes along Beach Court, standing 70 feet tall and 50 feet wide. Hundreds of yards of cloth, paper, and foil were pinned to the massive shrines. 10,000 electric lights lit up the night. To the people of the fort, it was heaven on earth. In the 1930s, games and competitions for kids and adults began to take prominence. The most popular event in Fiesta's early years was the seine races off Pavilion Beach. At that time, purse seine fishing, yes, we pronounce it seine, was the main fishing method. Seine fishing nets are dropped vertically in the water, their bottom edge weighed down with heavy rings, their top edge floated at the surface with buoys. A line runs through the rings, and once the nets are filled with fish, they're pursed up by the seine boat, then hauled onto a bigger boat. Seine boats held an entire fishing crew, and since the fleet stayed in for Fiesta, challenges amongst fellow boats became inevitable. Prizes in the first competitions were gold pieces worth up to $10. Crews today, including women's teams which began in 1995, and juniors, row in designated seines named Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria towards a flag anchored half a mile off Pavilion Beach, before making the 180-degree turn and racing ashore. The first to reach the beach wins an American flag. Second place earns an Italian flag. But the real prize is the bond amongst the rowers, and bragging rights. Contending crews bust each other's chops decades after the races are run. The other featured competition, the Greasy Pole Contest, is another custom from Italy that remains Fiesta's biggest crowd pleaser. Pole walking and climbing, as a measure of manliness, became popular in Europe centuries ago. Contestants walked or climbed poles slathered in mud, animal fat, and fish oil for a chance to snatch prizes like fresh food. The first Fiesta contest took place at the playground area of the fort, the pole jutting out from the rocky shoreline parallel to the ocean's surface. As Fiesta became a larger spectacle, the pole was moved to a platform 200 feet off Pavilion Beach, with a 40-foot telephone pole covered in biodegradable grease. Contestants in costumes walk in honor of someone in the fishing fleet, usually a relative. They take turns trying to grab a flag nailed to the end of the pole. There are 2 rules. Don't grab the flag during the opening courtesy round, or you'll get a beating, and keep an eye on the person walking before you. The event spans 3 days, with Friday's winner advancing to Saturday, and Saturday's winner advancing to Sunday. Sundays are reserved for champions who compete until they retire. When the flag is finally grabbed, the champion swims to shore, is lifted on the shoulders of the other walkers, and carried to the altar. The champs, like the same boat race winners, become part of Fiesta legend and lore. The true spirit of Fiesta, purists will tell you, is rooted in religion, and for decades, the highlight of the festival has been the Sunday procession of St. Peter's statue through downtown Gloucester. Months before the parade, families assemble ornate floats that recreate biblical scenes and sew homemade costumes that depict angels, saints, and other religious icons. The morning begins with an outdoor mass at the altar in St. Peter's Square, adjacent to the fort. Then, Fiesta committee members in their all-whites lead the 2-mile parade with marching bands, dignitaries, and all of the family floats. Thousands line the streets, many dressed for church and wearing symbolic buttons. The route includes stops along the city's Catholic churches, where St. Peter is blessed by clergy, St. Anne's Parish, and Our Lady of Good Voyage in Gloucester's predominantly Portuguese section. In fact, the Portuguese community introduced a hugely important part of Fiesta, the blessing of the fleet. As World War II neared its end, the congregation at Our Lady of Good Voyage began the ritual of marching a statue of the Virgin Mary of Fatima to the end of the State Fish Pier at Gloucester's Inner Harbor. There, clergy from the Archdiocese in Boston blessed hundreds of gathered vessels, calling each by name. The Italian community began to participate and slowly adopted the blessing into Fiesta. 2 marginalized and sometimes rivalrous immigrant communities came together. By the 1950s, the blessing of the fleet moved to Stacy Boulevard and became a signature event. Fiesta ends with a final late-night procession as St. Peter is returned under a hail of confetti and song from the altar to his usual resting spot inside the front window of the nearby St. Peter's Club. Today, a public novena featuring the very prayers and songs recited by fishermen's wives a century ago lead into a 4-day carnival that helps support the Fiesta and its activities. The fishing fleet is just a fraction of what it used to be, and the fort has evolved from a cozy Sicilian neighborhood that always had a full plate for passerby and never locked its doors. Locals keep that spirit alive through cookouts, reunions, and parties. But the meaning of St. Peter's Fiesta remains steeped in the fort's old country beliefs: God, family, and fishing. So if you find yourself in Gloucester late in June, like tens of thousands of others, look for the altar with a life-size statue, wear something red, white, and green, grab a eats, and follow along when you hear the chant,